said those things. None of that matters, Peter. You're my friend.
Trust me on this one, you don't know the pressure of being a superhero, as there are many people looking up to you as their savior. Marvel and DC have been making many impactful movies, so there are always going to be some sacrifices that one may overlook. A few months ago, I mentioned 10 of the greatest superhero sacrifices, but it feels like there are some more that need to be talked about, as selfless acts shouldn't go unnoticed. So get your tissue boxes ready as we go about another 10 more sacrifices that really hit us hard. Sometimes sacrifices aren't just from superheroes, and the best example for this is El Diablo's sacrifice in Suicide Squad. He was the 4th recruited member of the Suicide Squad and was one of the major pyrokinetic users in the DC universe. His moment of sacrifice came when the team met face to face with the Enchantress. After her offer of joining forces was basically turned down, she sent the Incubus to get rid of the team. The Incubus was basically a superhuman, and it was obvious the squad had no chance against him, so to buy time, a sacrifice was going to be necessary in this case. One of the great things about the Suicide Squad movie is the melancholy it could pull despite the character. El Diablo's last words reminded him that he had indeed found a new home within their team, and his sacrifice was to protect them. This managed to give this fire-breathing anti-hero a rather heroic demise, as he voluntarily sacrificed himself so the whole team could proceed. Deadpool movies are filled with their funny moments, especially those that pulled up satirical jokes against the entire superhero universe. But that's not to say the movie didn't have its emotional touch as well. The death of Vanessa was one of the turning points of the movie, and the second emotional scene came when Deadpool sacrificed himself to save Russell. Throughout the whole movie, Deadpool trying to convince the kid that moving on a path of revenge was pointless, especially as Deadpool learnt this himself in the first movie. But despite all his rather satirical emotional speeches, Russell still pursued a path of vengeance to kill his headmaster. Cable, seeing where the kid was headed, decided to finish him once and for all. Things would have ended that way if Deadpool hadn't jumped in to save the kid by sacrificing himself. It showed how much he wanted to stop the kid from going on the same path as him.
Sacrifice yourself for me.
Yeah, but it was the best thing I ever did.
This was always the plan, Stark. Come on, you gotta go see your family. Get up.
My family's dead.
Let's travel back to the birth of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or the birth of the very first superhero in that universe. Before becoming Iron Man, Tony Stark was a man who sold weapons just for the money, but things changed when he was captured by terrorists. The terrorist leader Raza tells Tony that he would grant him his freedom in exchange for building a weapon, but another prisoner named Yinsen tells Tony that Raza isn't a man of his word, and the two soon join minds to build a suit to escape. Yinsen appeared only for the first quarter of the film, but he was the very man who helped create the current superhero known as Iron Man. His character is one of the most underappreciated characters in the movie, and many ignore that if it wasn't for him, Tony wouldn't have come out of that situation alive. In terms of heroism and sacrifice, Yinsen is a man worthy for the superhero title.
Don't waste your life.
Next up, I want to talk about another underrated death amongst superheroes. X-Men is a franchise with a large cast of characters, and unlike the Avengers franchise, the movies didn't take time to establish each character, so the result was some characters' deaths losing their emotionality and just being another regular moment in the movie. The case in point is Iceman. X-Men Days of Future Past is a movie that didn't think twice about killing superheroes because eventually the timeline would be reset. When Iceman, Rogue, and Magneto prepare to leave, they're soon attacked by a Sentinel. Robert Drake, aka Iceman, buys time for Magneto and Rogue by freezing the Sentinels, but he soon realizes that his power isn't enough to defend them. He's pitted against 3 Sentinels who overpower him, and Robert is brutally murdered. Even though the moment was short, the shock factor of the death was the same.
I will no longer serve. This is the end for us both.
Say what you want about the movie, but if there's one thing in the movie you can't criticize, that's the character of Silver Surfer. A man completely made of artificial metal, skating along space, is a rather peculiar concept, but Silver Surfer had a way of looking cool and intimidating at the same time. Even though he was first mistaken as the villain, the Four soon realize it's all about the invasion of Galactus. In the final scene of the movie, Surfer manages to fly to the ship with the help of Johnny, but soon after, we realize that the end of Galactus means the end of the Surfer as well. The impact of the conflict destroys Galactus, practice, but the surfer dies as a repercussion. It was sad to see his character die in this way, but rather than that, what mattered was that he completely sacrificed his life to protect a foreign species, so hats off to the iconic Silver Surfer.
We'll get you through this. No.
Harry Osborn was a character that wavered between hero and anti-hero in the third Spider-Man movie. In the first part, he wanted to kill Peter as he believed he murdered his father, and in the second part, Peter went on and smashed a grenade to his face since he was in a really bad mood. But everyone has their time to shine. The return of Harry Osborn was a moment of hype. As Sandman was beating Spider-Man to death, it was up to his high school friend to save him. The fight proceeded smoothly until the appearance of Venom. He soon managed to gain the upper hand in the fight, and when he was about to land the killing blow on Peter, Harry intervened, which resulted in his death. This was the most emotional part of the movie, with Peter losing his best friend and Mary Jane witnessing the death of Harry right in front of their own eyes. But in the end, the character of Harry Osborn got a hero's sacrifice.
I know just where to put it.
Yes, Iron Man fans, your favourite superhero is not short of sacrifices. Before his finger snapped to save the universe, Tony Stark dedicated his life once more to save the people of Manhattan. It happened in the end of the second movie when a missile was launched at downtown Manhattan to prevent the invasion. But knowing the consequences of it, Tony Stark took to the skies with the missile in order to change its course to an alien ship, knowing his own life would be at stake. This showed how much he had changed since a weapons dealer back in the first Iron Man movie. We were holding our breaths the same as Natasha Romanoff for Iron Man to survive and fall through the rift, and when he did, the Manhattans weren't the only ones who cheered for him.
Look what happened to Scott! You killed the man you loved because you couldn't control your power! No, stop it!
That's it.
How can you stand back when one of your students is running berserk? Back in X-Men The Last Stand, Professor X had to take action when Jean Grey was turning to the very thing he'd feared for years. Now, some of you may say that this isn't a sacrifice because Professor X was killed by Jean since she couldn't control her powers. But Professor X knew he was going to get killed, and yet he was willing to talk to Jean, hoping he could tell her about the potential of her power. But sadly, things took a tragic turn as Jean herself killed the Professor. Back in the original X-Men trilogy, Professor X was the most important character to the team. He was like the very thread that managed to stick the team together and was everyone's direct or indirect mentor, so it was no surprise that his death hit them the hardest.
I killed those people. That's what I can be.
No, you can't. You're not.
I'm whatever Gotham needs me to be.
Sometimes sacrifices aren't just about dying at the hands of the villains to save others. Some sacrifices are all about giving up your legacy, your name, your reputation, or even your very identity. This is what Bruce Wayne had to sacrifice at the end of Christopher Nolan's critically acclaimed superhero movie The Dark Knight. Even though the Joker was captured, his actions had repercussions. One of them was Harvey Dent, who'd now transformed into Two-Face and held Gordon's family hostage. Before Dent could toss the coin that decides the fate of Gordon's son, Batman tackles Dent off the building. What's more important is the aftermath. Batman tells Gordon to hold his name responsible for everything and to carry on Dent's name without harming his legacy. This was one of the greatest symbolic superhero sacrifices ever made. All throughout the movie, it was emphasized how much Bruce Wayne valued the legacy and fear created by Batman, but at the end, deciding to sacrifice all of that to continue the good legacy of Harvey Dent is the most altruistic superhero act in my opinion.
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
No, Groot!
You can't. You'll die.
Why are you doing this? Why?
Right, now get your tissues ready, because this one is a real tearjerker. Guardians of the Galaxy was a series that teamed up several weird characters, but one person, or alien, that managed to get our attention was Groot. He only spoke 3 words. I am Groot. But he was the most loved character in the entire film, so it was a teary-eyed moment to see him sacrifice himself to save the 4 other members of the team. But as Ronan pursues them and manages to attack their ship, Groot had to take action to save the others, or it would mean all of their deaths. Trust me, no matter how much much I liked him, I never thought this tree-looking being would play such an important role in the film, but in the end, he was the indirect cause which helped the others defeat Ronan. His death was an emotional punch, and I bet everyone felt the same as Rocket, just as if their best friend had passed away. And so with that, our rather mournful list comes to an end. Let me know down below in the comments section which of these names really hit your heart the most. Also, if you feel that we missed any particular superhero sacrifice, make sure you check out Volume 1. Even though those heroes might have passed away, their legacies still remain. So honor those heroes, bow down to their sacrifices, and having said that, I'll be signing off, hoping to see you next time on the TV Regent.